Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Over the past few days, a startling claim has been spreading like wildfire across social media platforms. It involves Senator Bernie Sanders allegedly pushing through legislation that would grant $3,600 relief payments to all American citizens. And the claim goes even further. Some posts are even suggesting that these payments could begin as soon as next week. The reaction has been intense. Some people are excited, some are skeptical, and others are already counting the days until they get their check. It's a hot topic, and understandably so. With so many Americans still grappling with the economic fallout of the pandemic, the idea of a new round of relief payments is incredibly appealing. But what's the real story behind these claims? Is Bernie Sanders truly about to deliver $3,600 checks to every American? Or is this just another case of misinformation gone viral? We're going to unpack this claim and set the record straight. Let's separate fact from fiction and get to the bottom of what's actually going on. Before we jump in, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. You don't want to miss any updates on this groundbreaking financial relief effort. To understand the current situation, we first need to take a step back and look at how this story came to be. The claim about Bernie Sanders proposing $3,600 payments to all American citizens has been spreading across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other social media platforms, with millions of shares and comments. In fact, some of these posts have even made their way into major news outlets, further fueling the flames of excitement and confusion. So where did this claim come from? How did it go from a simple proposal to a viral sensation? The answer lies in the power of social media and how easily rumors can spread. The original posts seemed to suggest that Sanders had pushed through legislation for these $3,600 payments, and the news spread like wildfire, picking up momentum with each share and like. Unfortunately, much of the information in these posts was either incomplete or outright misleading. While it's true that Senator Bernie Sanders has been a vocal advocate for direct financial relief for American citizens, especially during times of economic hardship, the specific claim about $3,600 relief payments to all Americans is not entirely accurate. Let's break it down and explore what Bernie Sanders has actually been working on and whether there's any truth to the viral claims. Senator Sanders has a long history of pushing for progressive economic policies aimed at supporting working-class Americans. He was instrumental in advocating for the initial round of COVID-19 stimulus checks in 2020 and has been a staunch supporter of expanding social programs such as universal healthcare, free public college, and higher wages for workers. Throughout his career, Sanders has consistently fought for economic justice, championing policies that provide financial relief to those who need it most. However, the idea that he has proposed a sweeping $3,600 payment program for every American citizen is a bit of a misunderstanding, even though he has been part of larger conversations about relief programs. The viral claim about these payments likely stems from a combination of different proposals and ideas that Sanders has put forward over the years. These proposals have been misinterpreted and merged into one sensational headline. One of the most significant sources of confusion comes from the child tax credit expansion that Sanders advocated for during the 2021 relief packages. This program allowed for monthly payments of up to $300 per child for eligible families, with a total of $3,600 per child for the year. While the child tax credit expansion did provide significant relief to millions of families, it was not a universal payment to all citizens, and it was designed to benefit families with children specifically. This program expired after 2021, but its inclusion in the discussion has likely led to the confusion surrounding the $3,600 figure. Now that we know the origins of the claim, it's important to understand the legislative process required for any type of relief payment to become a reality. For any major relief program to come to fruition, it must pass through both houses of Congress, meaning the House of Representatives and the Senate, and then receive approval from the President of the United States. This is a lengthy and complex process that involves months, sometimes years, of negotiations, debates, and votes. It's also subject to the political landscape, which can shift dramatically depending on the current makeup of Congress. In the case of the $3,600 payment program, even if Bernie Sanders were to introduce such legislation today, it would still need to undergo rigorous discussions and revisions before reaching the president's desk. And let's not forget, the political environment is highly polarized at the moment, making it more challenging than ever for any major relief program to gain bipartisan support. While Sanders has considerable influence as the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, he does not have the unilateral authority to pass such a massive program on his own. Any proposal of this magnitude would require the support of both Republicans and Democrats in Congress. And as we all know, bipartisan support is hard to come by, especially when it comes to large-scale government spending. Moreover, such a program would likely face major hurdles in terms of funding. To provide $3,600 to every American, the government would need to secure over $1 trillion in funding. This would require a significant increase in taxes or new sources of revenue, which brings up a host of economic concerns, particularly about inflation, the national debt, and the long-term economic stability of the country. Let's talk numbers for a moment. The idea of sending $3,600 to every American citizen would be a monumental financial undertaking. With roughly 330 million Americans living in the U.S., providing $3,600 to each of them would cost over $1 trillion, possibly closer to $1.20 trillion. That's an astronomical figure that would require careful consideration of how to fund such a program without exacerbating the nation's debt or causing inflation to spiral out of control. One potential way to fund such a program, as Sanders has proposed in the past, is by raising taxes on the wealthiest individuals and large corporations. Sanders has long argued that the wealthiest Americans should pay their fair share to support social programs like healthcare, education, and economic relief. While this approach has gained traction among some progressive lawmakers, it is far from guaranteed to pass in the current political climate. Another concern is inflation. Injecting such a large sum of money into the economy could have unintended consequences, such as driving up the prices of goods and services. This would particularly hurt low and middle-income families, who are already struggling with rising costs for housing, food, and healthcare. This is why any proposal for a universal direct payment of $3,600 would require significant economic analysis to determine the potential impacts on inflation, the job market, and the overall economy. Now, let's address the most exciting and misleading part of this claim, the timeline. The viral posts circulating online have suggested that these $3,600 payments could begin as soon as next week. This is a major red flag and an indication that this claim is more fiction than fact. The logistics of implementing a nationwide direct payment program are complex and time-consuming. Even if such a program were approved today, it would take months of planning and preparation to implement it effectively. The IRS and the Treasury Department would need time to verify eligibility, set up distribution systems, and ensure that the payments reached the correct recipients. And that's not even considering the need for bipartisan approval and the drafting of the actual legislation. To put this into perspective, let's look back at the timeline for previous relief programs, like the COVID-19 stimulus checks. While those payments were distributed relatively quickly, they still took several weeks or even months to reach every eligible recipient. This was with a pre-existing infrastructure in place, something that would need to be built from scratch for a program of this magnitude. So, while the idea of $3,600 payments arriving next week sounds great, it's not happening anytime soon. Even if such legislation were to pass today, it would take months to get the infrastructure in place to distribute the funds. As we've discussed, any major relief program would need to pass through Congress before it could become a reality. So, what's happening in Congress right now? Are there any active discussions about direct payments, or is this just a pipe dream? At the moment, Congress is focused on a variety of other issues, including the national debt ceiling, funding the government, and addressing inflation. While there have been discussions about additional relief programs for low-income Americans, most of these discussions have centered around targeted programs like expanded child tax credits, universal healthcare, and housing assistance. Senator Sanders and other progressives have pushed for new rounds of direct payments in the past, but these proposals have faced resistance from more conservative lawmakers who argue that such programs would add to the national debt and exacerbate inflation. The ongoing debate over how best to provide economic relief to struggling Americans continues to be a key point of contention in Washington. So, where does this leave us? Is the claim about Bernie Sanders proposing $3,600 relief payments to all Americans true, or is it just another viral rumor? The truth lies somewhere in between. While Sanders has been a vocal advocate for financial relief, the specific claim about $3,600 payments is not accurate. While it's true that Sanders has championed various forms of economic relief, including the expanded child tax credit and direct payments during the pandemic, there is no current proposal for a universal $3,600 payment to all Americans. And even if such a program were to be proposed, it would face significant hurdles in Congress and require months of planning to implement. So, while we can't expect to see $3,600 checks arriving next week, the debate over how to provide economic relief to Americans is far from over. Stay tuned for future updates as we continue to follow this developing story. And as always, keep your eyes peeled for any new legislative proposals that could impact your finances in the coming months.